If you're running a chiropractic practice, then you know how valuable the data is. But maybe you don't fully understand how to gather it so that you can make the critical decisions that you need to make that will drive your profitability and growth of your practice. In this video, I'm going to share with you some of the small tweaks that you can use to generate massive results in your practice. Let's take a look. I want to share with you an amazing case study with Dr. Jeremy, who had only been out of school for about 4 to 5 years. He'd been growing his practice, building his team, and by all standards was amazingly successful. But probably like some of you, he felt like he had more in him. There was more room to grow. In fact, it was now shifting from that building and getting that initial success level to now feeling like there was more in him. More impact, more growth, more opportunity to create change in his community. And so he turned to the data-driven practice. One of the coolest things that we do in the data-driven practice is we build a dashboard. We took his data and displayed it in a dashboard. This is a data dashboard that allows us to see the health of the practice at a glance. We run what's called the profit formulas. And the double your profit formulas allowed us to see quickly exactly the one area of his practice that with just a few small tweaks, we could change everything. It's kind of like the lowest hanging fruit that you know you can easily take, make a change, and see the effects of those changes quickly. In his practice, that one thing was his new patient show rate. He was getting plenty of leads, but unfortunately, less than half of them were actually showing up for the new patient visit. I want you to stop for a second and think about the impact that that was having to his schedule. An unbelievable amount of open space. When you have open space on your schedule, you can't produce. You have nothing to actually convert into accepted care. And so that show rate became the one thing that we focused on the practice. Now we teach you in the data-driven systems to find that number one metric that you can now look upstream and work with your team on the strategy. There are numbers upstream and the processes that generate those numbers. And we found that there were a lot of steps missing from the lead scheduled to the new patient showing up in the practice. And with his team, we went through and worked with them on those exact processes that needed to be in place to increase the show rate. And here's the coolest part. Within just 4 weeks, we saw an incredible change in those numbers. Go from less than 50% to over 70% show rate for those patients. This was such a big jump that it actually increased his collections by 40%. Can you imagine that? Giving yourself a raise by 40% in 4 weeks by changing one number? That is the power of the double your profits formula. Now, I want you to stick around to the end to see the outcomes that this one small data tweak had on Dr. Jeremy's practice. So stick around to the end to hear these numbers. It's going to blow your mind because this correlates to what we call Pearson's law. And Pearson's law states that that which we measure tends to improve, but that which we measure and report accelerates that improvement. And the R in the driven framework is all about being responsible. It's not just your team members being responsible for their specific numbers. It's you being responsible to deliver the framework, the leadership that's going to help lead this team to become its potential. Because you're responsible to yourself, you're responsible to your family, you're responsible to your team in helping build the vehicle that's profitable, on purpose, and passionate about the patient results that you are getting. In fact, I want to give you a free gift just for being here. I just finished up a blueprint with your 4 most important conversion metrics that you should be studying and analyzing as you're building your process for your exam, case acceptance, report of findings, and case acceptance. If you want this blueprint, just post in the comments below, yes, and my team will make sure you get a copy. So for Dr. Jeremy to make this massive leap in the growth of his practice, we didn't have to track 100 metrics. We didn't have to look at 100 data points. We start with 14. And these are the 14 most powerful metrics that you should be tracking in your practice. The number one metric represents the marketing system, and that is number of scheduled new patients. These aren't just leads. We have a lot of data upstream from scheduled new patients, but this is the one number that if it's healthy, the system is healthy. And we pair that with a second metric that we call an accelerator called the new patient acquisition cost. This is looking at your marketing labor combined with your ad spend, dividing that by the number of completed new patients, and that gives us your actual new patient acquisition cost, which we've got to know that number. We then pass that product down to the front desk new patient system that is now tracking what percent of those new patients are actually showing up in the practice. We then track the accelerator to that system, which is completed new patient exams. We now can pass on a completed new patient exam to the exam and case acceptance start rate. How many of those exams make it to reported findings and accept care? They're moving forward with your recommendations. They've made financial agreements. They've made agreements to the outcomes that they want to have by going through your services. We pair that with an accelerator that we call your care plan value accepted. This is if you present a care plan, how much of that care plan was accepted, because this number will actually project how much work you'll be adding to the schedule. Do we need a bigger team to deliver that much work? If you have a massive month, you better be ready to deliver that massive amount of care to your patients. And so this is an extremely important metric for you and your team. We pass that on, obviously, to the front desk established patient system, where they're now measuring how many scheduled established patients do we have, patients that are now in care, and we pair that with the accelerator of what percent of those patients are actually keeping those appointments. The higher the percentage, the better the schedule for the treatment team, and that system is measured by total adjusted production. This is the value of services delivered each and every day. We want to know the adjusted amount, meaning after write-offs. Now, if you're cash practice, you are adjusting for cash discounts. If you're an insurance-based practice, you're adjusting for contracts with insurance companies. So track the value. What are you expected to be paid? Not necessarily your highest fees. We then pair that with its accelerator, which is the average adjusted production per visit. How much are we actually delivering per patient? Because it's very different for a personal injury case compared to a wellness visit, compared to a patient going through one of your programs for neuropathy or knee or shoulder or headaches or low back pain. You want to track on average, how are we doing at helping patients receive the care that we prescribed back in the exam and case acceptance system? We now pass on those services to the financial system, which is measuring what percentage of that adjusted production are we actually collecting. Now, again, your financial systems may be at the front desk, may be at the exam and case acceptance system, or back in the billing department. Doesn't matter, we have to track the number that allows us to see on average over about 90 days, how are we doing on our collections of those services? Are we efficient? Are we effective? Because this is the gas in your tank to hire more team members, to scale your practice, to reinvest in marketing. And that's why the accelerator paired with this system for the financial system is total collections. We are now ready to pass that on to the admin system. This is the executive system that measures profits. And one of your most important roles as the leader of this organization is to make sure this practice is profitable. This is on your shoulders to understand the books, to understand the numbers. And there's so many profit levers in the system that we love to move and optimize so that you can really scale that profitability. We then pair that with its accelerator, which is your average team member skill rating. This is an important number to track to make sure that you have A players that are being trained and their performance and their outcomes are in the winning state of the practice. It's incredible. So these are the 14 numbers that you and your team should be tracking. You've got to measure performance. If we want that performance to accelerate, we have to know what winning looks like for the practice. Your team has to understand what is winning, what is high performance, how do we improve this in our practice, and more importantly, how do we accelerate that improvement? Now, I'd love to understand from you, how long have you been in practice? Just put that in the comments below. I'd love to see in our community how long you've been in practice so that I can help you in the different stages, the different phases of your practice, and make sure you're breaking through those barriers to incredible growth. And if you love this kind of content, don't forget to smash the like button and turn on those notifications so you don't miss a single great episode. And of course, don't be selfish with this content. Share this with your colleagues. We're building a community to change this profession. And if we're going to impact our globe, our world, with true healthcare that you and I are delivering to our patients, we have got to make sure that we are sharing and building this community. Let's lift the entire profession by teaching them systems that will empower them to impact more patients' lives. That's why you and I are obsessed about this type of content, because it empowers, it creates a business that's efficient and will allow you to impact more patients' lives. And that's why we're here, to impact those lives. All right, now that you've been waiting for the results that Dr. Jeremy had, this is incredible, because if you remember back at the beginning of the video, we talked about the one thing. We call it the prime mover. The prime mover is what the whole team is focused on improving for this quarter. It's a sprint. And of course, we found with Dr. Jeremy, his new patient show rate, it was only 46%. And by fixing those processes with the team and having a dashboard to measure the outcomes of those results, the systems actually improved the show rate to 73% in only 4 weeks. Can you imagine that? And the impact that that had on his collections for his practice, increased collections by 40%. Can you imagine giving yourself a 40% raise in 4 weeks? What would that mean to you and your team? What would that kind of profitability mean for you and your team? Could you hire more? Could you pay off some bills and reduce the credit card? Could you give your team a bonus? Could you actually schedule that dream vacation that you've been waiting for? There's so much opportunity, guys, here, and that was just with one number. Imagine if we actually were analyzing all of our numbers. And that's the data-driven way. This is the data-driven practice, because I want practice to be fun again. I want you to love what you do. And that's what this community is all about. In fact, I want you to come join this free community where we're talking about this kind of stuff each and every day. It's the Data-Driven Practice Facebook group. Come be a part of it. And you will be supported by data-driven docs that are as passionate about you and having fun and joy again in owning and running a practice. I'll see you on the inside.